Hello students. Today we'll be discussing the origin and development of the party system in India. In a democracy, political parties play an instrumental role in the shaping and sharing of power. Political parties have assumed enormous significance with the extension of universal adult franchise around the world. In fact, political parties are indispensable for the functioning of a representative government. It is the chief agency to transform and translate public opinion into public policy. In countries ruled by colonial government, political parties have emerged out of the freedom struggle. In a representative and multicultural democracy like India, political parties have been shaped by multiplicity of factors. They are the nationalist movement, the ethnic and cultural nature of Indian society, ideology, leadership, cultural diversity, as well as the nature of political institutions. The origin and development of party system in India has passed through several phases. In fact, the party system that we witness today can be said to be the result of a number of factors. And all these factors have contributed to a vibrant multi-party system. The different phases of the development of party system in India can be divided into 6 broad areas. The first phase is the phase of the party system that originated during the freedom movement. That was between 1920 to 1947. The second phase was the one dominant party system, or which is popularly called the Congress system, which was between 1952 to 1967. The third phase is Congress dominance and dissent. This was between 1971 to 77. The fourth phase was the emergence of regional parties during the 1980s. The fifth phase is called the fragmented multi-party system, which was from 1989 to 2014. The last phase is called the second dominant party system, which has emerged during 2014 and which we can see it in the present times. Let us start with the first phase of the development of the party system, which originated with the Indian freedom struggle. Almost all political parties in India, students, had their origin in the Indian freedom movement. They had their antecedents in the pre-independence period. The Indian National Congress, which was formed in 1885, was not formed as a political party. It was a national platform to represent the aspirations, grievances of the Indians towards the colonial government. In fact, the Indian National Congress from 1885 to 1920 served as a pressure group for lobbying support for participation of Indians in British Indian administration and governance. It was only in later years that Indian National Congress translated itself into a political party and participated in the elections to the provincial legislatures. Gradually, the Indian National Congress also acquired the role of a mass movement and the leadership organizing a series of anti-colonial movements about which we already know. Apart from the Congress, the other political parties which originated in the pre-independence period was the Communist Party of India, the Akali Dal, the Hindu Mahasabha, the Muslim League. All of these political parties were formed around a particular ideology. Ultimately, all these political parties had one chief aim. The names may be different, but all of them actually participated in the anti-colonial movement. Now, what is the significance of the first phase for the development of the Indian party system? According to Myron Winner, by 1951, all these political parties exhibited certain special characteristics. And we find 4 groups of political parties had already emerged in the country. One group more or less accepted the basic democratic secular state provided for in the Constitution. Now, who were these political parties? This group included the Indian National Congress, the Socialist Party, the Kisan Mazdoor Party. The second group comprised of political parties which rejected the Western type of parliamentary constitutional system and advocated a model based on the Soviet or the Chinese political system and its economic forces. We have in this group the Communist Party of India, and this was the most important political party belonging to the second group. The third group emphasized on an ideology which rejected the existing state and turned towards Indian tradition, culture for inspiration and aspiration. In this group, we had the Bharatiya Jan Sangh as well as the Hindu Mahasabha. Next, we have a fourth group which was characterized by an indifference to the constitutional framework and which had certain specific communal as well as provincial interests in mind. In this group, we had the Akali Dal, the Jharkhand Party, and a couple of ethnic political parties. So, by 1951, we had political parties in the country, but these political parties exhibited different ideological trends. Let's come to the second phase, students, which is called the one-party dominance system. Second phase witnessed overwhelming dominance of the Indian National Congress. Rajni Kothari calls this phase the Congress system. India had a party system characterized by dominance coexisting with competition but without a trace of alteration, because opposition parties had little or no hope of preventing the Congress from coming to power, because Indian National Congress formed a sizable majority in both the union as well as the state legislature. Let us come to the features of this Congress system. According to Rajni Kothari, Congress system was a competitive party system in which the competing parts played rather dissimilar roles. Rajni Kothari described the ruling Congress party as the party of consensus. He also described the opposition parties as the parties of pressure. That means instead of providing an alternative to the Congress or to replace the Congress, the different opposition parties, they actually influence the Congress by working with like-minded Congress factional groups. The dominant party system and the roles of the Congress and opposition parties provided a congenial context for the rooting of Indian democratic process during the early years of Indian constitutional framework. Now, students, please note that there were parties in opposition, but these opposition parties did not oppose to change the government, rather they wanted to bring about some change in policies. They worked with the Congress in order to create a stronger democratic framework for India. According to Rajni Kothari, it was possible for the Congress to extend its domination because of a number of factors. First, the Congress, when it came to power, assigned a positive role for itself. It was a party which brought independence from the government. It also took upon itself the role of development of the society. Secondly, it made power of the central authority the chief condition of national survival. This power was not only consolidated but was greatly augmented. Thirdly, it made legitimacy the principal issue of politics and gave to the government and the government party an important symbolic value. The political system got legitimized through the identification with a particular leadership and its agents. And in fact, the Congress system identified well with the Congress leadership, especially Jawaharlal Nehru and other important leaders. Now, as I said that the Congress system was characterized by parties of pressure. Now, these parties of pressure referred to the leftists and the rightists. Now, let us see who are these leftists. In the 1950s and 60s, several political parties emerged reflecting diverse ideological streams of socialism, communism, liberalism. These parties existed parallel to the fractional mosaic within Congress itself. These political forces emerged as the core of non-Congress opposition. On the left of the political spectrum, there emerged several communist and socialist parties. The Communist Party of India, CPI, which was founded in the 1920s, adopted before independence a strategy of united front with the Congress Party and its members. And they entered the Congress Socialist Party in the hope of capturing the nationalist movement from within. However, they were expelled in 1939, but the Congress Socialist Party remained a distinct entity within the Congress organization. The CSP withdrew from the Congress after independence, dropped the prefix Congress, and later on joined a group of Gandhian dissidents to form the Praja Socialist Party, or PSP as it was popularly called. However, in the 1950s, the socialists were substantially weakened when Congress itself declared that its objectives was to the creation of a socialist party. So now Congress itself adopted the role of development of a socialist system of Indian society. The parties of the left has been plagued by factionalism and splits. The Communist Party of India split in 1964 to be called the CPIM, Communist Party of India Marxist, but please note that CPI and CPIM remained a distinct force in Indian politics in the later years. On the right of the political spectrum, there emerged the forces of Indian conservatism. The first major political party to develop to the right of the Congress was the Jan Sangh, founded in 1951. By 1959, another party composed of liberal businessmen, former princes and medium-sized landowners formed a political party which was called the Swatantra Party. It was the first party in India to challenge planning, government control and the development consensus evolved by Nehru and the INC. The party survived until 1974 when it was merged with the Lok Dal. Although these parties enjoyed very limited success till 1967, but definitely they served a key force as parties of pressure on the Congress. By and large, the 2 decades between 1947 to 1967 can be described as the period of dominant party system, or more popularly the Congress system. Let us move on to the third phase, which is called the Congress dominance and descent, which roughly covers the period 1971 to 1977, and we have a plethora of incidents: the rise of the Congress, the fall of the Congress, the rise of the Janata Party, the fall of the Janata Party. Let us quickly go through the third phase. The 1967 general elections marked the beginning of the transformation of the Indian political system. The results were dramatic. The Congress failed to secure majority in 8 states and it could not form governments in 7 states. In fact, its majority in the centre was also considerably reduced by a narrow margin of 54% seats. The third phase may be said to have started from the 1971 snap parliamentary elections, called by the Congress minority government of Mrs. Indira Gandhi after the Congress debacle in 1967, and the great split in the party in 1969 for personal and partly for programmatic reasons. Reversing the decline of the party, in the late 1960s, Mrs. Indira Gandhi forced her right-wing senior party colleagues out of the party and remodeled the party into a more progressive party committed to Garibi Hatao program. This strategy paid her a good dividend, and the Congress was restored back to power in New Delhi as well as in most of the Indian states. But that does not end the third phase. This electoral success was gained at a great cost to democratic as well as developmental dimensions of the Indian state. Bypassing the intermediary structures of power in the Congress party as well as in the state governments, Mrs. Gandhi established a direct mass contact with the people through her very popular slogan of Garibi Hatao. In the process, the democratically institutionalized party organization of the Nehru era was lost. It turned into a pack of personal and dynastic loyalists and followers of Mrs. Gandhi. The earlier democratic structure of the Indian National Congress was lost. There came about certain changes within the Congress. This populist turn in politics hurt the developmental process, as economic resources which could have been used for developmental purposes were diverted for mobilizing mass support, and this costed a lot on the developmental as well as the economic decisions and the planned development of the economy, which was initiated during the days of Jawaharlal Nehru. The Congress system under Mrs. Gandhi in the 1970s turned into a political pyramid. There was extreme centralization of power at the top and popular mobilization at the grassroots level. And the personal, dynamic, political charisma of Mrs. Gandhi changed the structure of the Congress. There started, during this third phase, anti-Congress movement by the very famous Gandhian Jayaprakash Narayan. The centralized political pyramid provoked the building up of a strong extra-parliamentary mass movement in the entire country that first surfaced to the Navnirman movement in Gujarat led by Sri Morarji Desai, and it subsequently spread to Bihar and North and then to the southern states. Jayaprakash Narayan offered leadership in this movement. Gradually, Congress majorities in the parliament and the state legislatures came to be confronted by the JP movement, and this period also witnessed the very famous All India Railway Workers' Strike in 1974, which paralyzed the largest railway network in the world. This has its ramifications not only on Indian politics but also on Indian party system students. All these developments culminated in the proclamation of internal emergency in June 1975 after the Allahabad branch of the High Court unseated Mrs. Gandhi on the charge of electoral malpractice in the 1971 elections, of which we are well aware of. The entire leadership of the movement and the opposition parties, including Congress dissidents, were put behind bars and the press censorship was imposed. The emergency excesses made the Congress a very, very unpopular political party. The third phase also witnessed the first coalition in India, that was the Janata Coalition. The 1977 Lok Sabha elections offered a provisional escape from this politics of confrontation between the Jayaprakash movement and Indira Gandhi's party by bringing into power the Janata Party, which was formed on the eve of elections through the merger of non-Congress and non-communist political parties. Morarji Desai was the Prime Minister of this Janata Coalition. This new centrist party could not, however, complete its mandate of 5 years owing to internal factionalism within the Congress as well as ego clashes between the top leadership. In the 1980 midterm elections, Mrs. Indira Gandhi came back to power with a thumping majority. Let us quickly summarize the features of the party system in the third phase. The third phase witnessed the rise and fall of the Janata Party. It witnessed the restoration of the Congress back to its clear majority. The 1977 elections formalized the ascendancy of Janata Party to power. It brought in the system of two-party system where there was one, the Indian National Congress, and the other one, the Janata Party. Now, coming to the fragmentation of the Janata Party, which also occurred during the late 1980s. By the end of the 1980s, Janata Party was transformed into Janata Dal in 1988 with the merger of a group of congressmen led by VP Singh, who left Rajiv Gandhi's government in 1987. The Janata Party was further split into Rashtriya Janata Dal and Samta Party in Bihar, Biju Janata Dal in Orissa, Samajwadi Party UP and the Janata Dal Secular in Karnataka. The fourth phase witnessed the emergence of regional political parties. Growing differentiation between the party system at the national level and the regional level led to the emergence of a number of regional political parties. Now, what were the reasons behind the emergence of regional political parties? Inability of national parties to give due recognition to regional concerns and aspirations paved the way for regional political parties. Very important regional political parties that emerged were the Jharkhand Mukti Morcha, the Akali Dal, the DMK, ADMK, Telugu Desam Party, the Mizo National Front, the GJMM, Gorkhaland Jan Mukti Morcha, Gorkha Liberation Front. We have a plethora of regional parties which were formed because of the inability of the national leadership to give importance to regional concerns. The second reason for the rise of regional parties was rise of capitalist farming and the regional elites who contributed to the growing power of the regional parties. Some of the regional parties which were sponsored by local elites were the Akali Dal, Telugu Desam, major Tamil parties which were represented by regional and business interests. The rise of the aspiring elites of these regions, the intermediate peasant communities, played a very important role to the rise of the regional parties. The presence of a number of cultural, ethnic, religious and caste groups also paved the way for the rise of regional parties. The regional parties champion local causes based on primordial sentiments. Demand for statehood also contributed to the rise of regional parties, where we have the Telangana Rashtra Samiti in Andhra Pradesh fighting for the cause of Telangana, the Gorkha Jan Mukti Morcha fighting for the cause of Gorkhaland, the Bodo National Front as well as the Bodo People's Front fighting for the cause of a Bodo homeland. Then we have the Uttarakhand Kranti Dal which fought for the separate state of Uttarakhand, the Jharkhand Mukti Morcha fighting for the separate state of Jharkhand. Demand for political autonomy in a federation has also led to the rise of several regional political parties. Coming to the fifth phase, fragmented multi-party system, which covered the period 1989 to 2014. The fifth phase witnessed the rise of multi-party system, fragmentation and multiple bifurcations of the political parties. This phase also witnessed broad sharing of political power between national and regional political parties and the formation of a number of coalition governments. Three major national parties emerged: the Indian National Congress, the Bharatiya Janata Party as well as the Janata Dal. During this period, we also find some important coalitions being formed: the National Democratic Alliance, the United Progressive Alliance 1 and 2 and the National Front and the United Front coalitions. In all these coalitions, regional political parties formed an integral part. Coming to the last phase in the development of the party system, which we are witnessing currently, which is called by some scholars as the second dominant party system. Now, this phase witnessed the rapid rise and expansion of the BJP and its emergence as a major political force due to its ability to delicately redefine itself, its social base, and to forge alliances with regional parties having different social bases. The BJP's organizational resources along with its charismatic leadership at the top far outweigh its competitors. One of the possible reasons for the rise of the BJP in the national arena is the fragmented and ideologically disarrayed opposition. A steady expansion of the middle class, and the expansion of this middle class not just in size but also in terms of social and political attitudes, created the ground for the rise of the politics of aspiration, which culminated in the rise of the BJP. Because the BJP under Prime Minister Narendra Modi has succeeded in transforming the social base as well as the political base of electoral competition, it disrupted the caste community system. It disrupted the political alignments based on caste and religion, expanded the social base of support, and set the ideological agenda of the country. The current political system can accurately be called the second dominant party system. Oliver Heath has actually focused on why the BJP has actually spread its base in the entire country. Now, it has been observed that the BJP's rise to power were because of how it spread throughout the country. It was linked initially with Hindu identity assertion, but later on it changed and transformed itself. There were three kinds of states which emerged to be the ground for BJP. They were the primary states where the Jan Sangh has emerged as a viable opposition party during the 1950s students. They were Rajasthan, Gujarat, Madhya Pradesh, Delhi, Uttar Pradesh, Himachal Pradesh. The next group of states were the secondary states where the Jan Sangh and the subsequently BJP made their pressure felt before the 1989 boom. They were Karnataka, Bihar, Goa, Maharashtra, Andhra Pradesh, Orissa, Assam, Punjab and Haryana. The third states are called the tertiary states where the BJP expanded in the post-1989 period. We have Kerala, Tamil Nadu, West Bengal and the northeastern states. Therefore, one thing is common, that the steady expansion of the BJP has led it to take up the pace erstwhile taken up by the Indian National Congress to be called a new dominant party system, that is the second dominant party system in India. Let us conclude our discussion today. Party system in India has traversed a long journey from the emergence of one dominant party system to the Congress defeat, emergence of the Janata Party, emergence of regional political parties, fragmented party system to currently the second dominant party system. Second important thing to understand, student, regional parties still continue to dominate national politics. Thirdly, the diverse political parties operating in the country have not threatened the federal or parliamentary system of the country, rather they have strengthened democratization. And let us not forget that political parties have actually offered more electoral choices to the electorate. Summing up our discussion today, students, we have understood the 6 phases into which the Indian party system has been shaped to take the current phase. Initial dominance of the Indian National Congress, then the Janata experiment, then the emergence of regional parties, then multiple political parties taking up the national arena as well as the regional arena. That's all for today. Thank you.